Thank you for joining with us this evening, Tuesday evening, for our family history class remote via Zoom. And this evening, we're pleased to have Karen Andrews present to us on indexing. Karen has been a Temple and Family History consultant at the Sandy Granite Family History Center, has taught a lot of people a lot about indexing. She's taught live classes there. And this evening, we have her remote via Zoom to give us the ins and outs of indexing, whether you're just starting or whether you've had some experience. And we hope that you'll share what you learned this evening with those in your wards, families, neighborhoods, friends, whoever you like. So we're all muted here, and we will unmute at the end of the presentation for a brief Q&A, so you can ask Karen any questions that you have about indexing. With that, we'll turn the time over to Karen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm Karen Andrews. I'm from the Newcastle Ward in Sandy Granite Stake, and I did serve for a while until the job was discontinued as the Stake Temple and Family History with an emphasis on indexing. So to start out, we need to make sure we all know what indexing is. An index is in the back of a book, and it makes things easier to find. And just in the same way, it makes historical documents easier to find for information on our ancestors. So indexing takes digitized copies of historical documents, a census record, a birth certificate, a marriage certificate, a death certificate, and makes it easy for everyone to find information about their ancestors. Once the documents are indexed, the computer actually starts searching for profiles on Family Search to match those documents in the way of record hints. Family Search has over 1 billion free searchable record entries. The free is important there because many records are charged for on different websites. Just this last January, 29 million records were added to Family Search because of indexers donating their time and skills. A year ago, President Nelson invited us to index more. And it's not very often that indexing gets a shout out from the prophet at General Conference. But at General Conference, he said, while worshiping in the temple is presently not possible, I invite you to increase your participation in family history, including family history research and indexing. I promise as you increase your time in temple and family history work, you will increase and improve your ability to hear him. As we help others, we help ourselves also receive personal revelation. So indexing is a work that is blessed by the spirit of Elijah because it involved, one sister wrote, because indexing involved service, sacrifice, and saving others, we felt its purifying effect. So service, helping others and other records be found, a sacrifice of time, saving others, because as we find names, those lead to temple ordinances. I want to show you a little video. We'll cross our fingers that it will work. I especially like this little cartoon video, and the little guy in it looks exactly like my nephew. So here we go. This is called Indexing is Vital to Family History Research. Let me know if it's not working. Okay, so that video just showed that new records are being indexed all the time, and just because your records weren't there last month, there may be more records there this month for your ancestors. With 29 million being added every month for the last number of months, that's a lot of new records, that are out there. Now, you ask about people indexing records. Recently, the 1940 census was completed by Family Search indexers, and a little while after that, they sent notices. So my friend received an email and it said, you indexed 1,512 names. That amounted to 172 names being added to the Family Search tree, and 117 ordinances were reserved. Now, probably more names have been added to the tree and ordinances reserved since that email came. And that's really a lot if you think about it, because a lot of people are still alive who showed up on the 1940 census. And some people have already had their ordinances done. And so indexing is leading to names added to the tree and ordinances being reserved. Indexing can be a great joint family project. The youth are really good at running the computer, and the adults are really good at reading cursive. So just if you do it, sit down and do it together, that's a really fun way to work on indexing projects. I started indexing about 14 years ago. It was an easy way for me to contribute. I love indexing. Indexing can be done in small chunks of time. There's no paper clutter. You can do as much or as little as you like. Some projects are easy, some projects are hard, some projects aren't much challenge, others really are. I really feel that indexing has made me a better researcher. I know what projects are available. I know what may or may not appear on a historical record, and where to look, where to hunt. So a lot of people choose to index when they've kind of reached a brick wall or can't find any more records. They go and index, which in return finds a lot of records for people, maybe themselves, but for others as well. So to get started with indexing, you want to log into your Family Search account. So I'm here on just my homepage of my Family Search account. And then you go to indexing, and there's a drop down there, and there's 4 different categories. The overview, I had it written down here. Let's see. The overview gives you a couple of, and we can just go there quickly and take a look at it. But it here has an area where it's called Find a Project. This is with maps, and shows a map to find a project from a map. This usually hasn't typically been the best way to find a project, so I just kind of avoid that. There's a guided tour. That's a homework assignment for you, is to try the guided tour. There's 3 or 4 places where you can get to the guided tour. If we were in a regular class, we would do this together. And then there's a category that says get help. So most of the time you wouldn't necessarily go to the overview. You would most likely go to web indexing. This Find a Project, again, is the map. It's a little bit harder to work around, so don't worry about that. And then the Help Center, again, here's the guided tour, help articles, tips and tricks, language and handwriting helps. And while we're right here talking about language, I just want to make you aware that if you have any language skills or know people who do, there's a big cry in the indexing community for your help. About 78% of the records that the church has indexed are in English. That leaves all the other languages of the world at about 22% of the records. And even if you think about that, half our membership now is, more than half is speaking a different language other than English. We have a lot of brothers and sisters who really need those records indexed. And there are classes available to help you learn how to index in another language, even if you had some high school classes or mission long ago. If you can help out in those other language, continue to serve those people that you served years ago, it would be great. And there are helps, there are word lists of name, birth year, birth date, spouse, father's name, mother's name, just real basic things. And you can learn to index in another language and help those countries that have very few records available. And then a community help forum. So most of the time when we go to indexing, we're going to just go to web indexing. And that's going to just take us to our indexing homepage. Here it will have, I've downloaded a bunch of batches over here. But most of the time we'll just go in, and if you haven't indexed much, guided tour might appear here. And so go ahead and take that guided tour. But when I click on find batches, there's a couple of different ways I can find batches. And I've found that people are really interested in different batches and different kinds of records as far as even while they're indexing. So personally, I love to do the marriage records because I know marriage records lead to finding a lot of maiden names, hopefully parents' names. And I love indexing marriage records. I also love indexing census records, and death records can be interesting at the same time. Not necessarily interested in naturalization records, but some people have told me they love those. So find something you're interested in. Now, let's just start over here. I can sort all the records by difficulty with this drop down. I can do them alphabetically A to Z. Newest, oldest, most complete, least complete. Here, Family Search has been working with Wisconsin to gather a lot of records and get those. Some of them are even really new. Like here, Wisconsin marriage records, 2015. These would show a big list. Certainly you could find something you're interested in. Now, so that's one way up here, just sorting them and looking at them. I would suggest not getting something that is mostly complete, because chances are you might not be able to do another batch from that project. And it helps to kind of keep doing the same batch. While we're talking about that, I was told that there's a learning curve of about 10 batches before you're comfortable. And so don't expect to be a pro all at once. It takes a little time to be comfortable. And once you're comfortable, there's lots of shortcuts and tips I'd love to teach you. But the project list is constantly changing because it's being completed. Those projects are being completed and put onto Family Search, published on Family Search. Projects range from way old to, like we just saw, a new one. And there's all different kinds. So on this side up here, you can sort, but over here you can search. So I've got mine marked as English. You can, again, we're in need of all these different languages as well. So if you have skills in those or would consider being trained, that would be awesome. I can do beginning ones. When I looked on today for an English beginning project, there are no projects to be found. But don't let that discourage you, because intermediate projects are sometimes better than beginning. So don't be discouraged by that. So we've got 27 intermediate projects. Again, we can look down here. These ones are kind of grayed. I think those are the ones that they're really focusing on wanting to complete in a more timely manner. And we've got South Africa records that are in English. These are, some are really old, these would be the years that they range from. So down here, it'll show how many are indexed and how many are reviewed. So someone else will review your work, so you don't have to panic. Like if you make a mistake or something, someone else is going to review it and just kind of verify that it's correct. The church is really big on having these records accurate. A poorly indexed record is really no better than an unindexed record mostly. So it's verified by a couple of people. And yeah. So we've got a big list of projects. And we're going to go ahead and look at them and take a project. So you can also mark your projects as favorites. I've starred a couple of projects, and the way you do that over here is just to star it here, and it'll show up in my favorites. So over in my favorites, I've got a couple of projects right now, and the ones that I'm going to show you, it's an intermediate project, and it's an Illinois Cook County death record. And so you would just click on index, and yours would probably just say index. I have the choice to index or review. After you've indexed about 1,000 entries and you feel comfortable, you can become a reviewer. And so what you do is you just check someone else's indexing. And if you need to, you make corrections. And one of the really cool things about reviewing right now is it would save the original indexer's spelling of the word as well as yours. So especially with handwriting, cursive handwriting, sometimes maybe a question, but they would save both names. And then when you search for that, you could find that record under either name. So that's a really bonus. So let's just look. If you index a record, just push. Oh, it's not going to let you. You would just push it here and it would come up. So I'm just going to go grab one of the ones I already have. They might be saying that I have too many out here. So it would just load the project down. And the very most important thing right here is this project instructions. That's like the Bible of indexing. So it tells you what to index. You want to always read the project instruction. People who make mistakes haven't read the project instructions. They're probably like, oh, it just takes too much time. I don't want to read it. But I promise you, you need to read it because every project is a little bit different. Every form is a little bit different. And what they want indexed is a little bit different. So you read the project instructions. And when as you go down here, they even have an example how to index a medical certificate of death. Here's an example of this form. Here's an example of this form. Here's an example of this form, an affidavit of certificate of correction. So it's a good idea to go ahead and pull that up, and it'll show you exactly. Number one, this is where we're looking for it. This is what we want. Number two, this is what we want. This is about where you'll find it on this document. And it goes all the way down there. So this is really handy to just have up, and while you're indexing, you can just jump over to this other tab and see a good example of where they're finding this information. Okay. So that's really important on the project instructions. Also on the project instructions, they have those examples, things to remember about this project. And then general indexing guidelines. These again are important. General indexing guidelines. Every project is different, and so it might apply to your project, it might not. But here you can go down here and take a look at them. Given names, what do you do? What if they have an alias? How do I do that? Surnames, place names, indexing dates. What if they have 2 dates there? Crossed out, corrected information, overlays. You never know what's going to be on your project. Ditto marks, duplicate images. What do I do there? I might want to use a ruler if I'm doing something like a census record. What if my image is sideways? Can I rotate it? And this gives you all different kinds of things there that you can click on. So this little project instructions is super, super helpful, and you really want to read it, read it, read it. I probably can't say that enough. Now, what happens if I close out this project instructions and I can't find them again? Well, you're in luck because they're everywhere. Over here, project instructions. Okay. Also, this little tab here, project instructions. When I'm doing an entry, it'll show project instructions. So they're pretty much everywhere, and go back and read them again and find out. So we've got project instructions, and we just saw those general guidelines down here, general indexing guidelines that kind of apply to almost all indexing. Okay, but the project instructions outweigh the general instructions. So every time I take a batch, let's just talk about some of these words. So a batch is a set of images or pictures that need to be indexed. It should take about a half hour of time, and it might have one image, a big census record with like 50 names on it, or it might be 6 death certificates. That's what this one has. So down here, I've got 6 death certificates in this batch. And here's image 1. So picture number 1, picture number 2, picture number 3, picture number 4, picture number 5, and picture number 6. When I open a batch, one of the first questions they ask me is, should this, right over here, should this image be indexed? So my choices are yes, that's what you usually put. No, it's a duplicate image. It looks just like the last one I did. Or there's no extractable data on it. So that could be like if this was just a blank form, or it was a blank paper, or it was just a bunch of writing or someone's name or something. So in that case, it wouldn't be a death certificate. So I would mark it no extractable data. But again, unless it's an exact photocopy, not just someone with the same name, not just something that looks similar, it has to be an exact photocopy to be a duplicate. Okay. So if one's typed and the other one's handwritten, but they're the same person, it's not a duplicate. It needs to be an exact photo Xerox copy. So most often we put yes. So I look at this one, yes. Shows me the next one, yes. Next one, yes. Next one, yes. Next one, yes. And then I am going to be ready to put in some information. I'm just going to quickly, well, no, I'm going to go back and find one that I have almost all done. And then I'll show you about submitting it. So let's just go back to my queue where I've got a bunch of papers in here. I wrote down which one it was. Right here is the batch number. That's the batch number, M39WLVK. So I worked on this one earlier and it's almost complete. I'm on number 6. And while we're talking about batch number, again, here's the batch number up here at the top. It's possible for me to get some help if I'm having trouble with this. This one's typed, so it's not really very hard. But If it was handwritten and I was having some help, I could share my batch number, this 7-digit code, and someone could look at that for me and help me with it. They could look at my exact screen and they could say, oh, I think it says this. And then you could continue. If you wanted to do that, if you had a friend you wanted to share a batch with, if you wanted to share a batch with me and ask me some questions, that would work as well. So we've talked about general indexing guidelines, and we've also talked about project instructions up here. If I forget them, they're just a click away and they're worth reading. The other thing is there's what's called a field help, and it's this purple question mark. So suppose I got here and it says state file number. I can click on that purple question mark and read more information just for the state file number. Because I looked at that sample, it's right here, plus it says state file number. I know what I'm going to type in, but let's look at it. Type the state file number, including any letters or punctuation written with the number. It was commonly recorded at the top of the record. If the state registered number was not recorded, type the local registered number. State file number or DF number. Often a version of these numbers is stamped without a label and should be indexed. So they want some kind of number from up here. Most likely the state file number first. Do not include zeros at the beginning of the number. For example, 03 would be typed as 3. If a number was not recorded, press Control B to mark this field blank. So if there's an asterisk like this on a field, this little asterisk up here, that means it's a required field. And if you don't have something, it has to be filled in. So let's just go ahead. I'll just quickly type this in. 611272, deceased given name, here it is, Herman Guzman. So I would type Herman and any initials or middle names. I don't need to put periods, but I can if I want. Surname, Guzman. Deceased sex is male. Month, you're going to just type the first 3 letters is all it will let you type. July 7th, 1997, and I just tab to go to the next place. The death city, it's only asking for a city, Chicago. And it's got some drop down helps there. Again, if I'm not sure, it tells you select it. If the locality has been abbreviated or misspelled on the image, choose an expanded version or the correct spelling. So remember, this gives you way more information on each field. Deceased age is right here, 41. Deceased birth year, just the birth year, 1956. The birthplace. And once you've done a couple of these, you know just where to look for the information. That's why it's kind of nice to do the same project again and again, or to do a few of those. But remember, they won't be out there forever, especially this is a pretty nice project. Again, fine for beginners. Next thing, Social Security flag number. If you're not sure what that is, it says select yes or no from the drop down to indicate the Social Security number is listed for the record. So I'm going to put yes, because here it is. The color, the race or color, spouse's name, there's no spouse. So because these have an asterisk, I need to put, not type the word blank in. Some people do that. Don't type the word blank in. You need to mark it blank. And I can do that with Control B, or I can do it right here for this mark here where it's mark the field blank, this little X. Do not do this one. That will mark everything I've done blank. Be really careful with this all black X. And then the father's given name, Herman Guzman. Down here at the bottom where it says parents. and Jacinta Ramos. All right. Now, I finished all 6 of these because I did them earlier today, and I'm ready to submit the batch. When I submit the batch, it says I've got 2 issues. This is a quality check just to make sure I filled things in. So over here, I didn't put anything in for the spouse on image 4. I'm on image 4. You can see that down here on the bottom. So I go look at the spouse. There's no spouse. So I need to put Control B or this blank in there. And then I'm ready to submit my batch. When I submit my batch, I get some confetti. Thank you. The batch has been submitted successfully. And they want me to either take a similar batch, again, a death record from Cook County, or my next batch in my queue, which is the England Middlesex Parish Register. Or I can just cancel out. And it takes me back to my batches. But I'm going to open up another batch because I want to show you a few things on here. Again, this is the same thing. First question is, should it be indexed? And then once you've gone through and said yes or no to all yours, then it's ready to give you the form. So let's talk about a little bit more about some of these other little helps that we have. Sorry, I'm just going to put this on form entry over here. There's a lot of things you can do. Like I can move this form entry here over to here if I want. Okay, so I can move it over there. Say that's easier for me. I can also change some things like hide some of the fields, change the order of them if it goes better with my form. Those are a little more advanced, but I'm just showing you there are some little tricks, and you've probably seen me doing this. So this makes your image larger, makes your image smaller. You can rotate your image here, rotate left, rotate right, invert your colors, make it brighter or more contrast. So those are some great features that you might want to use. You can always also see some batches before or after, which especially on some handwriting things, if you can look at handwriting from the page before, the page after, if it's the same person writing, that might help you as well. So those features are all helpful. Let's cancel out of that. And you might want to use those a lot. From here at batch, you can again get your quality checker to see if it's ready to submit. You can submit your batch. You can return your batch. Don't feel bad about returning batches, okay? If it's too hard, if it's too frustrating, just send it back. When you check out a batch, you have it for about 10 days, and it will say on your queue what day that needs to be finished by. But if it goes back, it goes back. Don't worry about that, especially when you're starting, okay? And this will just take you back to the web indexing. Some projects can only be done in one way, like a form entry, like to the side here. Some you can index as a table or rows. Column entry is a little bit higher skill. International characters, if you need some of those, they're right here. They're also right here. This little Spanish enye, whatever, I can't remember what it's called. My husband would be embarrassed I just said that. So international characters. If you want to show your toolbar, I would suggest you show your toolbar. If you want to show a ruler, again, a ruler, I've got a green one on here. I don't need it for these death certificates, but if I was doing an a census record, or something that had lots of names on one picture, I would for sure use a ruler, and that can be really helpful. You can even change the color if you want. I know I'm giving you tons of information. This show reference images, again, is the same thing as right here, where you show the pages before or after, which is helpful in some cases on some projects. Again, every project is so different. It's so important that you work that project and read the directions. Use your project instructions, again, right here, or they're right here at the bottom. And then for these field helps, use these purple question marks because they really help you on each of the questions if you have any idea about it. If we were just working on indexing together, I'd probably say, have you read the project instructions? Have you read the field helps? Because I have to read those on every single project, even though I've been indexing for 14 years. Because I don't know. I know most of the general guidelines, but I don't know specifically what it is the US Illinois Cook County death records want. And sometimes they want you to expand IL, like right here, IL to, I need to get rid of that ruler, IL to Illinois, and sometimes the project doesn't want you to. So that's why it's important to read those project instructions. These projects are kind of advanced. They're kind of for copying information to the same thing. Handwriting help, share a batch, like we said, if someone wants to look at it, and then international characters. I think I skipped over this one. And if you hover over these, they'll tell you what they are. You mark a field unreadable, say ink was spilled on it or something like that. You might want to just mark it unreadable. You can't read it. Another thing you can do is say ink was just on the last letter or something. So if you can't read one letter, you can put a question mark. So let's just say it was this Sophie, but I can't read this second letter. I could put S question mark PHIE. Now, if it's more than one letter, they want you to do an asterisk. So S asterisk IE. And that at least gives some clues when someone is searching for it. It also can be used when you're trying to research as well. If you put a question mark in there or an asterisk for more than one letter, you can do that too, especially if it's kind of a weird last name that you're looking for and you're not sure if they spelled it right. Like I was recently looking for looker and it was indexed as locker, or just however best the person could read that handwriting. So that's for unreadable. These next two are really important right here. So this one is if you need to add more entries. So say you were doing a census record and it had 30 entries on there, but you've got 31 or 32 people listed on the census record. Well, you can add 2 more entries and you can decide if you want them before the first entry, after the current entry, or after the last entry. You can add those. And that's really important. Maybe you found out you left off one person when you get to the end and you don't want to have to redo the whole thing. And so you might want to put it after the current entry or maybe after the last entry. And so that's that little adding entries. Now let's say this garbage can, let's use the same example. If you have a census record and it has, say, 35 entries on there, but you only have 20 people listed on yours and the rest are blank, you might want to delete some of those entries so that you can submit it. So you might want to delete whatever entry you're on, or delete all blank entries and push delete. And so a lot of times that happens, that you need to use these, and people are often asking about how to get rid of extra blank entries or how to add entries. Another time you might use it as an example here, you got to the bottom here and you meant to go to the next image. You meant to go over here to this next image, but instead you hit create entry number 2. And so now on this death certificate, you've got 2 entries. And you've only got one person who died here. And so you're going to need to get rid of that extra entry that you did not need, that you accidentally created. So while you're in entry number 2, you can just simply go to the garbage can and delete that entry. And now you're back to just one entry for that, that death certificate. Okay, I'm just going to check and make sure I've told you everything I wanted to. Remember, you can do the guided tour. It does help to stick with a project once you get familiar with it. You've already read the project instructions. There's no need to read new project instructions every time, but remember, those won't last there forever. While you're indexing, think about the people that you're indexing. Try to imagine the people, maybe like on a 1900 census record. If you can't read it, send up a prayer. Sometimes real hard handwriting all of a sudden becomes legible. Sometimes errors are found. I've had those experiences before. Or look at it again with new eyes, and you may be able to read it better this time. Ask a friend, ask a parent, ask someone who's in the room to take a look at it. 2 heads are better than one. Again, accuracy is really important. Recently, I was doing some research, and when I found the correct document, the birth dates were 20 years off. They had written them as 33 and 34, and they were supposed to be 53 and 54. And so they were really hard for me to find, but I did find them. Again, the handwriting was kind of hard, but because they were indexed incorrectly, they were really hard to find. We'll have questions in a few minutes, but I just wanted to close with commit to indexing a batch, maybe a batch every month, every week, every day. Every little bit helps. In Alma 37:6, it says, by small and simple things are great things brought to pass. And Elder Bednar has said, ordinary people who faithfully, diligently, and consistently do simple things that are right before God will bring forth extraordinary results. And we're seeing extraordinary results in Family Search as people are coming together and indexing records and finding those people that need to be added to the tree and to have their ordinances done. And with that, we can go to any questions.